So good morning, everyone. How's everyone feeling? Anyone stay up all night? No, that's good. Okay. I'm Greg Kriem, and I'm a customer success manager with Salesforce.com, based out of the Toronto office. I'm here with Kim Nguyen, who is with Kaiser Permanente from Southern California. And we're going to be presenting to you on the Time Savers session for advanced administrators. Everyone get their eye masks for sleeping? So is anyone here staying at the Westin St. Francis? Yeah, me too. So yesterday morning, nice wake-up call around 5 with the picketers outside. For those of you who aren't staying there, they're on strike right now, the hotel workers. So I was hoping I was going to get some earplugs this morning so that tomorrow I can actually sleep in. So here's our safe harbor statement. I'm sure you guys have seen this a few times over the last couple of days. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to start it off. We're going to go through about 6 tips and tricks for my piece, and then Kim's going to be doing 5 of hers. My part is more end-user specific, and these are some tools that you can take advantage of to provide to your end users. Kim's going to be getting into more of the admin-specific features. So what we're going to do is it's going to be more of a demo-style presentation. And I also want to let you know that all of the things you're going to be seeing, you will have access to in a user guide that will be accessible from the Dreamforce portal. So you don't need to be feverishly writing down or taking pictures of the screen. All the information will be provided to you, and you'll be able to access that just by logging into the Dreamforce portal. So I'm going to jump into Salesforce now. And so I'm going to give you, this is going to be more of a scenario style. So think of me as being a sales rep. It's first thing in the morning. I like to get in early and make my outbound calls to call my contacts that I haven't spoken to for a while. So I pick up the phone and I give Liz Lemon a call. And Liz is someone that I haven't spoken to. I think there's an active opportunity there. So I give Liz a call, but unfortunately Liz isn't there. So as I'm in a flow here, I'm making lots of calls. I want to make about 20 calls before 9 a.m. So instead of going in and having to select the activity history, log a call, put in my information, we have a custom button that's been enabled called Left Voicemail. So all I need to do after I've left the message for Liz is I select this button, and what it's going to do is it's automatically going to track in activity history that I've left the voicemail on the specific day, which is today. And what else it's going to do is create an open activity for me to follow up in 2 days on the voicemail that I'd left her. So this enables me to be a lot more productive in my day. I can then go and pound on to the next phone call. I'll just quickly show you how you go about setting this up. So within Setup, you scroll down to App Setup Customize, go into Contacts, hit the Buttons and Links button, and there's the Left Voicemail custom button. So once again, all of this information I'm sharing with you, I'll be providing detailed instructions in the guide that you can access from the Dreamforce portal. So this code and information is in the portal. So it's a matter of just setting it up, step-by-step instructions if you want to put this in. I also have included in the guide a left voicemail button for leads as well, so you'll have access to that as well. So I've gone ahead, I've left the voicemail for Liz. It's a couple of days later, I'm actually on a sales call. And I get an email. Now think of this, I'm showing you Gmail right now, but pretend that I'm looking at my BlackBerry. So I get an email from Liz. She's following up on the message that I had sent her. And she goes, "Hey, I received your voicemail. Thanks for following up." And then she said, "We're close to a decision, and as an FYI, Solar Flare Heating was in to present their solution, and it appears to match up very nicely." So when I see that, I get very concerned because I thought I had this as a slam dunk deal that was going to be closing. So what I do, and this is an example of a relatively new feature that we have, which is called Email to Salesforce. I quickly send Liz an email. Hi, Liz. So we put in, thanks for the follow-up. And then what I also do is I add a BCC. So I've saved in my address book the email to Salesforce feature. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to send this, and by putting in that BCC, this email will automatically get logged into Salesforce under Liz's contact record. So if we go back into Liz, we will see in the activity history, there's the email that I had sent out. So this is called Email to Salesforce. And it's a feature that you can enable as administrators within the admin setup section. So you go to email administration. There's this email to Salesforce. All you need to do, it's a checkbox to turn it on. So you select active. Oh, there it is. Okay, so edit. And then active, just hit this checkbox, click save. And what you can do is you can set up email to Salesforce for Outlook, for your BlackBerry, for Gmail, any email system that you're currently using, you can set this feature up. From an end user perspective, all they need to do is to go into personal setup, email, my email to Salesforce, and they just take this little snippet of code and save it in their address book, and then I named it as Greg BCC, so that could be a good tip for your users. That's how they should save it in the address book. And then they can just include that in any outbound emails, and it'll automatically get posted and added into Salesforce. So the next thing I'm going to show you is some fun things you can do with a console. How many of you are familiar with the console? Okay. So typically people use the console more from a service and support perspective, or maybe you've got an inbound, like a lead generation team. So I'm going to show you some ways that your sales team can also use the console. And so for this example I remember that I sent an email to Liz a couple of weeks ago, and I want to follow up on that message. Now typically if you go to the contact record, if you click on that view activities, you actually have to scroll through and click on every single activity to see the notes. So what this does is if I click on Liz in the console, you see that this is a column called View Activities. So by clicking on this, the lower frame is all of her activity history. So you will see that the last email that I'd sent out is showing up here. You can scroll through and you can read all the different emails. You don't actually have to click in every single email to actually get the access to the information. In addition to that, I have a View Account. So if I select this link, it's actually going to show up the activity history for all contacts related to that account. So this is another great time saver for you to enable for your sales reps to find notes, communications that they've sent to their reps in the past, or to their contacts in the past. So the next thing I'm going to show you is an example of some neat workflow that you can do for tracking competitive information. So you remember that email Liz sent me? She mentioned that solar flare heating we were up against on this opportunity. So I go into the opportunity, and I want to make a note of that. So I click on the Edit button. We've got a primary competitor field. So I select solar flare lighting and click the Save button. Now by doing this, what's going to happen is I'm actually going to receive an email with some competitive information on solar flare heating. And in addition to that, my sales team, so anybody you have on the sales team will also receive a copy of that too. So if I just go back to my Gmail message and hit inbox, you'll see here there's a pop-up from myself to Bill, and it talks about the opportunity. So this is helpful for the sales team and other people involved in the company so that they know exactly the opportunity. Also include a link. So if I click on this link, it's actually going to take me back to that opportunity. And then there's some competitive information. So this is all done by setting up workflow. So if we go back into the app, I'll show you how you can go about setting that up. So under App Setup, Create, workflow and approvals. And we just select the workflow rules. And it's the competitive information rule. So once again, for those of you who are just coming in now, everything that I'm sharing with you today will be accessible through the Dreamforce user portal. So you don't need to be taking notes of like the little bits of information that I'm sharing on the screen. You'll have detailed step-by-step instructions that will be provided to you by just logging into the Dreamforce user portal. I'll show you how you get to that information at the end of the session. So here's the rule criteria for the opportunity and the email alert that is generated. I'll just click on that and show that to you. Okay, so the email alert is here, and you can see the list of recipients on the sales team as far as who will be receiving this. And then it's just a matter of setting up the email template and linking it to that email alert for workflow. So fairly straightforward, but once again, we do have the step-by-step instructions you'll be able to utilize. So the next thing I'm going to show you is called locking closed opportunities on, it's a validation rule. So for this example, I go into the opportunity and I remember that I forgot to fill out some information related to the implementation start. The reason why you want to lock closed opportunities is you want to make sure the information in there is accurate and pristine as far as when the deal closed, it's as accurate as it can be from a historic reporting perspective. So what this does is it enables you to actually control that. So if I make a change in this opportunity, what's going to happen is you're going to get a pop-up saying you cannot edit closed opportunities. And so it gives you a little information saying you reach out to sales operations to make any changes. So this is an example of a validation rule you can enable. So I'll just quickly show you that. So you go into Setup, App Setup, Customize. It's under Opportunities. And we select Validation Rules. And it's the Edit Closed Opportunity Validation Rule. So one thing I wanted to share with you is there is a profile ID in the validation rule. So what this indicates is you can set this up to a specific profile, be it your sales ops manager, be it a specific administrator, maybe the VP of sales. So you actually still give somebody control to actually make edits and changes, but you limit that. So the salespeople can't go and make changes to closed won or closed lost opportunities. So this information, this code, it's all included in the guide. I'm going to mention that a few times just because people are still walking in. So, okay, so that was the validation rule. Now, the other thing I'm going to be showing you now is just a way for you to manage duplicate contacts. So, some of you may have sales reps that don't seem to search first. They may actually just, they meet someone, put the name in, and all of a sudden you guys are stuck with duplicate contacts you're constantly having to take care of. So this is a free application that's available on the App Exchange. It's a duplicate contact blocker. I'll show you how it works. So you go in and create new. And so say I just met Liz Lemon at a trade show and I think, oh, it'd be great, I should put her in the system. So instead of doing a search, I go in and type in Liz's information off of her business card. And then I have her email address as well. And I click on the Save button. So what's going to happen is you're going to get this error popping up. So all of your sales reps that do this, from now on, they'll receive this pop-up saying that this contact cannot be created because it already exists. So this is available for free on the App Exchange. You can actually customize it. So what it does is it looks at first name, last name, and then email address. And that's what it uses to see if there is a duplicate. But you can adjust that if you want to. It's an example of just an Apex trigger that fires every time a new contact is created. So I'll show you where you go about getting that. It's right in App Exchange. It's called the Duplicate Contact Trigger. And it's a freebie. It's from the Salesforce Labs. So definitely encourage you, for those of you with a few reps. I know not all of you have this issue, but a few sales reps that might tend to create new contacts every time they meet someone instead of searching first. So take advantage of this one. It could save you from a duplicate data perspective. So the next, I'm actually going to now transition over to Kim. And we'll do a quick introduction. So Kim is with Kaiser Permanente, and I'll have Kim talk about how Kaiser is using Salesforce. Just a note, we will take questions at the end, so please save any questions you may have for the end. We'll be happy to answer them. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yoon Kim Win. I sometimes go by Kim. I work for Kaiser Permanente. And for those of you from California, you guys all know who we are and what we are. We're an integrated healthcare provider. In terms of size, we are a $40 billion company. We service 8.6 million members in 8 states, in addition to the District of Columbia. Some key things that will help you understand what we have done with Salesforce is, in the past year, we reached a major milestone where we are now at 1,000 members. This has been a huge achievement for us. Another thing is that we are now in all of our regions, whereas before we rolled out to specific regions. We were trying to get into our biggest client, which is California, but they were actually holding back, waiting to see what would happen, see whether or not Salesforce would actually be staying or not. So we finally convinced them, and we now have all regions on board. And because of that, our work has grown exponentially, and we're just still tapping a small piece of them. So we're going to continue to grow with the addition of California. Another major milestone is up until this year, we were a standalone application. We didn't talk to any other systems. We just captured the information in Salesforce, and we just dealt with it there. Sometimes we would load data from other systems, extract it, load it into our system, and that was it. But for this year, we were able to create some integration from Foundation system, which is our membership systems, and we're getting nightly updates, and I think broker systems are now being updated. And so we're continuing to tap into our legacy system. It's a slow, long process. Another thing is that, after 4 years, how far have we come? And an example is that in this year alone, we've created 46,000 opportunities. That's how big an impact we've become in all of our regions. Last year, I think it was 45. So we're showing a consistent level of usage within the application. And so, who am I? I actually work on the core team. I work with a team that deals with data quality, reporting, and dashboards. Usually when there's a need for massive data cleanup or assistance, or if there's a report that is too complicated for the average user to create, they will contact our team, and we will help them develop it and set up samples for them to clone and roll out to their units. So, all right, so I'm going to go into some examples of some tips that we have developed over the years. And the first one is, let me go into it here. The first thing we came across was management needed to understand the collection of their data. When we first started off, there was a lot of things that they wanted to collect, but they didn't want it to make every single field required. That would prevent the users from moving forward, going out there and selling things. It was important to get some fields completed at the creation of the opportunity, but they could come back and fill in the rest. So what we ended up doing is we created what we called I don't know how this well, let me refresh. Okay. We created what we called a completeness check field, where management would tell us exactly which fields they wanted to include in this check field. In this example, I have 7 fields, and if one of those fields is completed, then they got 1 out of 7, which was about 14% of their total 7. So all it is just a percentage. And what we also did was we created a dashboard to help them say, okay, of their department, what is the total percentage of completed fields in all of their opportunities? As a account manager, if I were to go into this dashboard and I know my manager is looking at this, I can see that my coworker, Bill West, is at 100%. He's collected all of his data for his opportunities this year. And let's pretend I'm Casey. I'm only at 25. So I would go into the report. Scroll down and look at my section and see, oh, I've got a lot of blank fields that need to be filled in, and that's why my percentage is so low. So if I were to go in as Casey into one of her opportunities, and I'm going to log in as her. So now I'm logged in as Casey. I can come in and start filling in some of the fields that I know are being counted. So it's going to go from 14 up to whatever I can complete. So now I'm at 43% simply by completing the 2 additional fields that I've done. So, and I would just work this report and this until I had completed all of my fields, and then my percentage goes up to 100, and then it will be reflected in my dashboard, and management knows that I've done my work. So basically all that does is help the account manager identify what needs to be done and help management track the progress of the collection of data. And so how did we do that? I'm going to go into Setup. We created a formula field called Completeness Check. And all it does is for every single field, we identified, we basically gave it a point for every time it was completed. So in this case, if the pick list was blank, it got 0 points. If it was filled in, then it got 1 point. And it would just add up each point and then divide by the total number of fields that was, identified by management. That's how we came up with the percentage. And that's all it is. And then when you are creating your reports, all you got to do is remember that you have to set your completeness check to less than 100 so that you come up with a report that identifies just the opportunities that they need to work on. Their goal is to get their opportunities off this report so that they're done. Okay. So, all right, let's move. So that was my first example of one of our tips. Another one, let's say I close out this opportunity. I'm done. I know what we've won. Okay. And then I remember, oh, you know what? I forgot to write in the next steps. Management is going to look at that. I know that. So I am going to try to change that. Call underwriting. But Greg's validation rules prevented me from editing this because it's been closed. So what do? I'm going to call the help desk and says, I need to update this one field. I've been locked out because of this rule. What can you do? So I am now going to log out of Casey. I am going to log in as myself. So I am management now. I'm sorry, I am the help desk. I've gotten the call from Casey asking me to update this field. Yes, I am going to run into problems too, but I'm going to get that same error. But what I have that Casey doesn't have is this field called the validation override. And if I change the value of this field, it will bypass all validation rules. So it just allowed me to enter that, and I've saved it. What's the value of this? The value is that in the beginning we had 17, 20 validation rules on an opportunity. When we needed to update some information and we didn't have all the pieces, we had to turn off all those validations or identify the ones that was triggering the stoppage. And so what we had to do is we ended up creating, okay, I don't want to go turn off 17 validation rules and then turn them on again. I just want some way to turn it off temporarily. So what we ended up doing was creating this field, and when you go into the validation rules, you'll see that inside Greg's validation rule, I had added this little section here where it says, if that field, the validation override field changes, then bypass, don't run this, don't trigger this validation rule. So if it stays the same, then it's okay. So it's just a quick way of, when you're on the screen, to just temporarily turn it off so that you can move forward with creating the information and saving it. And you would have to do this for every validation rule on that page. Otherwise, you might trigger another validation rule and would have to turn it off. Okay. So one thing I wanted to show you is, let's see. Let's see. I'm going to show you what we called our last user modified field. You're going to see that it's an exact duplicate of each other. One is the system generated standard field that you can't get rid of or you can't modify, but it captures everybody who changes, even administrators. But one of the problems we ran into was when we as administrators are cleaning data, we are touching the record, we're changing it. So users would come back and say, what did you change? Something happened and I want to know what you did, and we know we just loaded membership. So the last person before us who changed it, we've lost that history because that's not saved anywhere. So what we ended up doing was creating a last user modified field to mimic the last user field, and it's only updated when the user is a non-administrator. And let me show you an example. Right now, I'm logged in as myself. Casey was the last person in here. I am going to come in here and make a change. It says, the system field says that I, the administrator, changed it, yes, but it also preserves the fact that the last user who changed it was Casey. So we know what we changed. Now you can also ask who the last user was. And the way we did that was by creating some fields that mimic the modification fields. And this is all in the documentation. Here they are. These 4 fields, 2 of them are text to capture the name and the ID of the user. One is to capture the date. And this last one is to create a hyperlink so that you can actually click on it and it'll take you to the user as if it were the Salesforce field. And the first step is creating these 4 fields. But what you also need to do is create a workflow and some field updates, because something's got to trigger to update those fields. So after you create those 4 fields, you would have to create these 3 field updates. And all it does is say that for the date, enter now. So it's today's date. And for the user ID, it looks at who is the user who's making this modification, and grabs the user ID and the name. So it just grabs the user's first name and last name. And then you would have to create the actual workflow. And in it, the criteria is that if the profile of the user is not an administrator, is not one of these that we've identified, then run these updates so that field gets populated. And that's how we're able to, mimic this. And then you can click on it, and you know it's Casey. So it's a live hyperlink. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is an issue that we ran into with our Georgia region, where they were creating a lot of opportunities, but their sales staff weren't coming back and closing them out in a timely manner, and they were focused on making the sale and then moving on to the next potential if they didn't they didn't close the sale. So what we ended up having to do was create a workflow that said that 90 days after it was last modified, if it hasn't been touched, close it out with a stage called close withdrawn, which means we withdrew from it, but nothing has been sold. And all that is another workflow with a field update. This is the opportunity auto close. So it runs, it's a time-dependent workflow. So it says 91 days after the opportunity was last modified, check to see whether or not it has been touched. And if it hasn't, then it runs this field update, which is basically change the stage to close loss. And if you look at the screenshot that I provided, no, that's not it. Well, if you look at the screenshot of the package after the session, you'll see there's an example of where 90 days after it's created and touched and worked on, it automatically got closed out.
And Kim, how many opportunities are being opened on an annual basis at Kaiser? Because it's a significant amount.
Well, we created 46,000. So I mean, obviously, each one of those has been closed at some point.
Yeah. So 46,000 opportunities in a year. So this is a pretty helpful workflow rule, especially at Kaiser.
Yes. Okay. So the next one is one where I will try to get to right now. It deals with the contact's address. Here I am in this record for Big Sky's Sons. I've got 13 contacts. I want to check the address that's listed for all the contacts. What this does is it just grabs all the contacts and lists their addresses. And I can already see that these 4 are missing addresses, and the remaining are just variations of the same address. And this is the address that is actually on the account. So what this updater does is, if I select these 4, and I want to standardize the remainder, I hit update. What it does is it goes down into each one of those contacts and copies the account's address. And you can see it by so it basically did the copying. How useful is this? An example is one time a broker unit, I think it was Mercer, moved offices. Can you imagine hundreds of employees having to, change their addresses? And we, as a department, we actually moved a year ago, so we had like 500 employees moved. So, and it also helps standardize things. How do you get this, and where can you find this? This has actually been packaged up. If you look at your material, but I'll type it in here. One of our consultants was kind enough to provide this for free. Is that right? Oops. Okay, partners. Okay. If you follow that link outside of this, it'll take you to the app exchange where you will get a preliminary site because it hasn't been approved yet. It's going through the review process and it wasn't reviewed in time for this Dreamforce. But if you follow that site in the documentation, you'll be able to get it. Okay. Okay. I think.
I'll quickly show you how you access this information that we've shared with you today, and then we'll take questions from the audience. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, so you just need to log into your Dreamforce user portal, select the content link on the left-hand side, and then type in time savers or time saver and hit go, and you're going to get the access to a PDF guide where it has the detailed instructions that you can then utilize and take back to the office for you. We also have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation as well. So it's pretty straightforward. That's going to be up there for a while. The last piece that Kim showed you, which was the link that we couldn't get to work here, that link's included in there, so you'll be able to access the App Exchange and go on to that. But I'd like to now open up the floor to questions. Okay, you were first.
Greg's
so you actually repeat the question.
So the question was, after the help desk did the modification that she requested, would she still be able to make other changes? The answer is no, she would not. Greg's validation rule would kick in and say, this is closed, Casey. You still cannot update it. And the only reason I was able to is because I changed the value in the validation rule. I only am allowed to see that. We restricted the visibility and access to those fields to people we knew we could trust, who were high-end users or administrators. And another point is so why didn't we just add the profile ID to all of our validation rules, and then that way all of our administrators would be able to bypass it? One of the problems is that, the administrator needs to see what kind of validation rules pop up. They need to understand the data. We can't just say, that's not my issue. You got to learn what the customer is important to the customer, how their data impacts other pieces of the data on the page. So that's why we keep it visible and we understand it and we can see what the user sees.
Okay. You there? Mm-hmm. So how to actually create your own custom buttons? There sure is. There's some step-by-step instructions you can get from help and training, but then there's also our developer force.com website where you can get information on there. Just I didn't repeat the question, sorry. There's a question around the left voicemail custom button. Is there a way for you to actually get access to kind of the code and the technology that you need to follow to put that information in? So, and don't forget, we also have the left voicemail button for the lead as well as the contact as well. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is for the email to Salesforce? Actually, quick show of hands. Who's using that already? Okay, good. Oh, that's great. Okay, so the question is, can that be used for Lotus Notes, right? So yeah, the answer is yes. I showed it from a Gmail example. You can use it with Outlook, Hotmail, your BlackBerry, your iPhone, you name it. You can include it in there. Yeah. Yeah. So it's based on the email address. So it goes from the email address, and that's where it looks for in Salesforce. So if there's any errors or duplicates, as we kind of showed that, it'll actually, you have the option of customizing where that email should go. Is it the one that's got the most amount of data or the most recently used? So you can actually have some settings that you can take advantage of as well to ensure that email to Salesforce goes to the right contact. Okay. Yeah. 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 Let me show you that because I kind of didn't really go into too much detail on that piece. So let me go into the console again and I'll show you how that's set up. It is a custom formula field for both of those. So I'll just go into setup and I'll show you how that's set up. So what you need to do with regards to that that view activities is it's a custom field on the contact record, but you don't actually expose that field on the contact page layout. It's only exposed within the list view that you use. So I'll go down into its view activities, and there's the view all account activity. So if we go in there, you can see that there's a formula. It's a hyperlink. So this also works in list views as well. So if you don't want to use the console, you could also have your contacts list view with this view all activities as a column in the list view as well. So you just need to put this code in, and this information is included in the content on the Dreamforce portal. Okay? Yeah.
For the duplicate contacts.
Yes.
Why wasn't that included as part of Salesforce? So, is there anything similar to that for accounts?
Right. You may have noticed there's been a lot of focus on providing these solutions on a more regular basis. I don't know the answer of why it's not included natively or right in with Salesforce, but you have a choice. So there is a contact trigger, but there is also an object trigger as well. We did have these on a few years ago, but they were S controls, and as you know, S controls are going away. So they've been replaced by Apex triggers. So the contact blocker, it's a trigger, and there's a couple others in there as well that you can take advantage of. So, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Any others? You at the back there? I do believe that it's more just individual and not API generated. Does anyone actually, do you have an answer? So it would work for imported leads or contacts as well? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So the question is, with the dupe blocker, what does it key off of? It actually keys off of, it goes through three things: first name, last name, and email address. You can also go in and customize it. So if you have any other information you want to incorporate in that duplicate check, you can do that as well. Any other questions? Yep. Yeah. So unfortunately, you can't have attachments go through into Salesforce right now, but we are doing a lot of changes. We're really focusing on our email to Salesforce solutions, specifically in the Outlook arena. So that's the limitation right now, is no attachments. Yeah. Yep. So if you misspelled it or something like that. So because it does, as long as you don't misspell the email address, because that's really like the final check. Because everyone has a unique email address. That's like the last one that checks it. As long as that's typed out correctly, you're going to be, it'll come back as an error. Yeah. Okay. So, Yeah, it's just based on when you do the creation. So if you've already got the contacts that are duplicates, you're going to have to go in and scrub those. And as you know, we've got several partners that are available that can provide automated solutions for that. CRM Fusion, Ringleader are two of the ones. Yeah. There's a question. Yes? Yeah. 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 Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah. Right. Okay. So you're not going to have to replace all of your S controls that have been created and replace them with Apex triggers. So that's the first major piece of information. We've decided to standardize on the Apex programming language, and so the triggers that use the Apex you can develop with Apex are more robust than the S control functionality. So the S controls are going away. I do believe in the next couple of months you may have received emails, those of your administrators. Does anyone have an exact date for that? January? Okay. So there's a lot of information with regards to why that's gone away. So you can look that up through the Salesforce community site, and I do think there's also information in the admin setup section as well around S controls as well. Has anyone got anything more to add with regards to the S controls versus Apex?
Greg, I have one thing about the S control. That last example I showed you where we were updating the contact addresses, that is based off of an S control. So if you're interested in it, you probably want to go grab it, put it into your instance of Salesforce before they start blocking.
Before January.
Yeah, before January.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes? Mass upload contacts.
Yes.
There is. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. I believe there's a section in the setups where it's called manage data or data management. You can import records or something. Let's see. Import business accounts and contacts. Another thing you can do is Salesforce actually has a link in here for data loader. This is the primary tool I use for importing data. It's free. You can download it. You just make sure that your columns match either the API name of the field or the field name, and then it'll automatically match them, and you can upload it. And like I said, all this is free.
The other thing, too, with the data loader, it's only available with Enterprise Edition and Unlimited. So if any of you are on the Professional Edition, you unfortunately won't have access to that. But within the Salesforce community website, there is a solution called the Excel connector, which you can also use for doing mass loads of data into the system. Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. All right.